to talk about the difference between podcast strategy and podcast marketing. And you can also replace the word podcast with content if you are not yet ready to launch or do a podcast. So we're going to really talk about the difference between strategy and marketing. So many people confuse these two things. And 9 times out of 10, honestly, this is what creates the biggest block for entrepreneurs, is not knowing the difference between what is the strategy and then what is the marketing. All right, so I think that at the core of this misunderstanding is the fact that with social media and all of these apps and all sorts of things, that anybody can really call themselves a strategist. So I want to first caution you and make sure that if you are going to pay someone to help you do this, that you are doing your due diligence and asking questions before investing any significant sum of money, okay? Because just because someone understands an algorithm and just because somebody understands a social media app or the ratios or posting schedules, that is not a strategy. So don't let somebody tell you that they're a strategist when really what they are is an app specialist. Still a very valuable skill. Don't get me wrong. Very, very valuable, but not the same thing. Today, what I really want you to understand is the difference between what is a strategy and what is marketing. And I want you to kind of lean into this so that you can start to ask some really great questions. That's where you're going to figure out where your blocks are and how you're going to be able to move forward with either your strategy or your marketing. So let's dig in. Before you start with anything, before you create a strategy, before you create your marketing plan, before you do anything, you need a goal, all right? And I know this is like kind of the boring thing where everyone's like, you need a SMART goal. It needs to be, strategic, measurable, all of those things. And it does. It actually does. There's a reason why we say that you have to have a measurable goal, because your strategy is going to be this overarching umbrella and your marketing plan is what is going to inch you forward toward that goal. Without having some sort of metric by which you're measuring your progress, you're never going to actually know if anything's working. Now, I did say metric, which lends itself to data and numbers and analytics and all of those things. And 9 times out of 10, that's the kind of goal that we set. Sometimes it's a revenue goal. It can be a follower goal. It can be an engagement goal. It can be a subscriber goal. It can be anything like that. But goals can also be to have created a certain amount of evergreen content, to have elicited a certain amount, a number of responses that help us to gather sentiments or feedback from our listeners, right? So the goal doesn't necessarily have to be based in metrics and money, but you do need a goal. If you don't have a goal for yourself, your content, and your business for the next 90 days, stop this video, save it on whatever platform you're watching it on, go create a goal, and then come back and let's dig in again to the next step, okay? So you need to have a goal. You need a goal. Once you have that goal, I'm just going to create an example so that you can start to see how you create a strategy and then how you create a plan out of that strategy, okay? So I'm actually looking down at this because there's a bit of data here that I want to make sure that we're getting right. So let's say, for example, you've gone away and you have set your goal. And in this case, we're going to talk about podcasting. But again, this could be blogging. It could be Instagram. It could be content. It could be whatever you want. But we're going to talk about podcasting because that's really my bread and butter, where I like to live. So let's say that your goal is to grow your podcast to 1,000 downloads per month. Okay. So this is where we're going to start with the strategy. And here's where you can pause this and go grab a pen and paper or open up the notes app on your phone or whatever you want. But the strategy part of your plan deals with these 2 key questions. Okay. Your strategy is going to deal with how. Your strategy is also going to deal with why. These are the 2 biggest questions that you need to answer. So if your goal, let's back up, if your goal is to create your podcast such that it reaches 1,000 downloads per month, the first question you're going to ask yourself is, how are we going to do that? All right. So let's break that down. How are you going to achieve that? Well, from a purely numbers standpoint, let's make it easy. 1,000 downloads a month is approximately 33 downloads per day. All right. So we're going to look at how are we going to get to that 33 downloads a day or 1,000 downloads a month. Well, the first thing we're going to do is look at what we've already got. Okay. What we've already got is, let's say, a network that can help us get 2/3 of the way there. So we can get to about, between 650 and 750 downloads a month just by tapping into our existing audience. The remainder, what's going to get us to the goal, we are going to activate through strategic use of cross promotions and audience sharing with other podcasters. Audience sharing is something I'm so passionate about, and I plan to teach on it in another video. So stay tuned for that. If you have questions about audience sharing, please drop them in the comments section below, and I'll just take all your questions and make sure that I address them when I teach about audience sharing. But this is for the example. So answering the how are we going to hit the 1,000 downloads a month? Number one, we're going to tap our existing audience, assuming that that's going to get us 2/3 of the way to our goal. Number two, we are going to cross promote an audience share, hoping that gets us the remaining third so that we can hit that 1,000. Okay, so there's the how. The next part of the strategy we need to address is why. Okay, why, not why do we want to hit the 1,000? Okay, so many strategists will get you stuck in a swirl of answering why do you want something, when really the why do you want something question is for your life coach, your business coach, your spiritual advisor, your soul to answer. And I recommend you answer that question, but that's not strategy, okay? The strategy is, why are you going to do it the way that you articulated you are going to do it? And in this case, why are we going to use the blend of our current audience and then audience sharing to reach our goal is for these two reasons. Hypotheticals. Fake, whatever, I made this up, but you can start to see why. That our social media and email marketing currently convert very well. So that means our current audience is actually quite engaged. Why wouldn't we use them to help us reach our goal? Okay, we can reasonably assume that we're going to get good or better conversions when we share a new resource with our existing already engaged audience than we would if we went after cold audiences. Okay, so that's number one of why we're going to do it that way. Okay, number two of why we're going to do it, audience share, is because it's actually relatively low impact in terms of how long it takes and how difficult it is for potentially high rewards. Audience sharing brings in a warm audience rather than a cold audience. So it is one of the fastest ways to activate new audiences is through audience sharing. Okay, so from a time efficiency and a commitment efficiency, this is why we are taking this approach. So that is your strategy, okay? You have just answered the how and the why. Now we move to the marketing plan. We move to the execution of what we are trying to achieve. This is what a lot of social media gurus, this is what they want to teach you is strategy, and it is not. Okay? If you don't have the first two parts mapped and identified, mapped against a goal, these next things are going to be very hard. They are going to be very, very hard. You're going to get tired, and they're not going to work as well. It's going to feel clunky, okay? So once you map your strategy, we're moving to the marketing, and that's where we're going to answer the 3 W's of the what, the where, and the when. I cannot tell you how many times entrepreneurs have worked with me in my content strategy programs, and they want to jump right to the where and the when. Well, what platform should I be on, and when should I be posting, and what should I be writing about, when they haven't done the work to figure out the overall fundamental foundational strategy. How and why need to come first, okay? So now that we're at the 3 W's, this is where, with your strategy in mind, you're going to layer in the supporting pieces, the pieces that are going to support you with the how and with the why. So let's just run through them really quickly in case of this example. What are you going to share? As in, What messaging, what copy, what calls to action do you need to share in order to get your 2/3 of your current audience activated, engaged, and ready to subscribe to your new podcast? Then, what messaging, copy, calls to action do you need to create in order to activate the new audience, that 1/3 of people that you don't yet have, from audience sharing and cross-promoting and all those other things? What nuanced calls to action are you going to have to share in order to activate them? Okay? That is the what. What about where? Where are you going to share that? Are you going to share it on Instagram, email, LinkedIn? This usually starts to crystallize, to be honest, when you are in the strategy phase. You start to get a sense of where you're going to need to show up. But you do need to crystallize this. So is your current audience maybe all over Instagram and really all up in your email newsletter? Perfect. But maybe your audience sharing and cross-promotion audience is way more active on YouTube and LinkedIn. You need to know that so that your strategy is supported by your marketing. Okay? So that is the where. There is no one answer for this. It's entirely dependent on your how and your why, your audience and where they are and why you are trying to reach them there. Okay? This is where you need to commit to your strategy. If you need to show up on Instagram and email to activate your current audience, and you have to start showing up on LinkedIn to get the new ones, you need to commit. That is your where. The last piece of the puzzle is when. When are you going to share it? And I don't just mean time of day or day of the week. I mean, are you launching something? Is there a hard deadline? Is there a vacation? Is there the end of a quarter? What I don't want you to do is forget that timing actually matters in the grand scheme of things and on a micro scale. Do not blow your strategic advantage by sharing too much too early or too little too late. Okay? Timing really matters. So we have just gone through the fundamentals of how to really create a strategy, in this case, to launch a podcast and get it to 1,000 downloads per month. But this could be applied to any kind of content marketing that you are doing. Do not confuse the strategy with the marketing. The strategy begets the marketing every single time. How and why, and then you've got what, where, and when.